What happens when truth-telling becomes catalyst for change? Welcome to the PhD with Women on IT, Hack the Future. My name is Jemille Navarosa and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Jenny Chan. And our discussion for today is Echoes of the Past, Leaders of Tomorrow, a conversation with Jenny Chan. Episode 201 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women in IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my module, and empathy is critical when history meets hope. Before we start our discussion, I want to take a moment to shine a spotlight on some incredible achievements from our community. Huge congratulations to our former PhD guest, Jess Schultz, on delivering her TEDx talk. From memorizing an 18-minute speech with no teleprompter to stepping on stage just 4 months postpartum. Congratulations! You showed unstoppable grit, heart, and authenticity. Your message, your courage, and your story are exactly what the world needs. We are so proud of you. Congratulations to Michelle Gelanze on receiving the special award at the Florence Biennale. What an incredible milestone! Your dedication, artistry, and vision continue to shine on the global stage. Now let's go back to our topic. Echoes of the Past, Leaders of Tomorrow, a conversation with Jen Chan. Join us for an inspiring positivity hack delivered with Jenny, founder, president, and executive director of Pacific Atrocities Education, the nonprofit bringing global awareness to the overlooked atrocities of World War II in the Asia Pacific. Through books, videos, and digitized archives reaching over 800,000 visitors each year, Jenny is preserving history while empowering future scholars through PAE's renowned internship program. In this conversation, we explore how authentic storytelling, inclusive leadership, and purpose driven branding can preserve truth, foster empathy, and inspire action. Discover how balancing tradition with innovation creates lasting influence and why resilience and consistency fuel meaningful impact. Whether you're a leader, educator, and or change maker, this episode will challenge you to see storytelling as powerful force for connection and transformation. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jenny. Thank you so much, Jenny, for joining us. And to start, where in the world are you today?
I am in California in the United States. Thank you so much for having me.
So, tell us, the for our viewers, can you tell us what is the Pacific Atrocities Education is all about?
Yes, so we're about preserving history and also because in order for never again, people need to know what had happened. And being in the US, when we learn about World War II, we mostly learn about Hitler and um, and the Jewish Holocaust, which is very important to learn about. But then we never learn about what had happened to basically a in Asia, which is basically a continental size of atrocity that happened in World War II. So we focus on using our website to tell the stories of what had happened in World War II. For example, we have blog posts, we have our videos, we have a very important digital archive. We have documented about close to 1 million pages of war crime activities that had happened in during that time, and we have really focused on digitizing because during COVID not a lot of people can go to the United States and to College Park, Maryland, to scan all these documents, so we made sure that these are preserved and available for scholars worldwide on our website.
So, could you share with us in your work is truly massive, and you personally committed to scanning over 1 million pages from national archives. What was the single emotional spark that made you realize that the sheer scale of this forgotten history needed your personal dedication?
Yeah, so I actually spent 10 years working on this, and before these 10 years I had a normal job. But I when my grandma passed away, I found this box of items that were like, "Oh, okay." um what she was, because when I was watching anime and like learning Japanese, then she was telling me, "Oh, that's brain rot. These people are evil." And I had just thought that my grandma was sharing that because of racism and whatnot. And little did I realize that she had suffered a lot during the Hong Kong occupation. I mean, during the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong. And so then I started looking more into the history. I read the late Iris Chan's book, Rape of Nanking, but that was only really the tip of the iceberg. And it was 300,000 people killed in Nanking, which is, if you think about it, it was more than two atomic bombs casualties. But yet no one was talking about that. And then I was reading more about what had happened in Asia, for example, in the Philippines, the Manila massacre, and also other atrocities that had happened. And it was incredible. My neighbor, I think my neighbor's father was the mayor of Manila during the massacre at the time, and I had just happened to talk to her, and she was telling me all these things that I never heard about. And so I was thinking, wow, if this is like a collective experience that had happened in Asia, then it's very important for us to talk about our our historical truth, so then our we can heal as a society.
So, what are two or three of the most significant forgotten atrocities, like the Bataan Death March or Comfort Women, that PAE works to bring to light? And why is it crucial to share these particular narratives now?
I think Unit 731 is a very interesting story that is very forgotten because people were used for human experimentation. And not only that, not only with the human experimentation, a lot of the victims of the biological weapon happened after the human experimentation, because they were um, the Japanese Imperial Army spread glanders and anthrax in these villagers' soil, and so then for like decades, even for decades after the war, they could not use the land to farm, and then they would end up with rotten leg disease, which is glanders and anthrax on their legs, and so then their skin was falling off and their limbs were falling off. And I think that story is very important to tell. And also just like the sheer brutality, the other episode I think was is very interesting is I don't think people understand the Baton Death March, and that which eventually led to, and how inhumane it was, because there were these people who were marching from and they were starving, they were hungry, and they were thirsty, and there were Filipinos who offered them water and whatnot. And then they beheaded not only the people who were taking water from the Filipinos, but they also, um, beheaded the Filipinos as well. And so it's just like all these stories that have started lacking, like, I think, human empathy. And I think it's very important. And like your show, it's very important for us to have human empathy, so to ensure that these things don't happen again.
When dealing with such difficulties and often suppressed histories, how does PAE ensure it maintains both historical accuracy and the deep audience trust necessary to share these raw truths?
Yes, so I reach out to a lot of historians, and unfortunately, a lot of historians don't really know what I'm talking about because of these kind of suppressed narratives. And so, for example, a group of high school students use our website and our resources to produce a documentary for National History Day for New Mexico, and they ended up winning. And it was interesting because a lot of people who were judges and historians had no idea what they were talking about in terms of Unit 731. And a lot of our And that's why we focus really on digitizing documents, primary source documents from the National Archives, because um, if we use any other sources that might be questionable, people might be like, oh, this is fake news and whatnot. But if it's coming from the United States National Archive, people trust it a lot more. And also, we make sure to really find different sources that talk about the same thing. Sometimes that's really hard to do because after Japan had surrendered, they burned a lot of items that were related to the war. And so that's hard to do in terms of finding those documents.
Mhm. And Pei mentions that sharing vulnerabilities builds trust. Can you share a moment where revealing a difficult truth or a personal challenge actually empowered your team or deepened your connection with the audience?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Sharing vulnerability is definitely something that's interesting. We're a very small nonprofit, so I always and I remember there was a time that maybe we had only 1 month left of budget. and,
Mhm.
and it was very hard for us to keep pressing on. And so I had to share with our audience that, hey, we only have 1 month left of runway. And I shared with my colleague that we only had 1 month of runway, and they were very helpful in terms of like then we were working together as a team to try to figure out like, hey, what is our priority right now, and how to continue fundraising and make sure that we can last another year.
Good. Beyond the statistics, can you share the most chilling or poignant story you uncovered in the millions of pages you scanned? A story that brings the human cost of these atrocities into sharp focus.
Yeah, so we recently discovered a bunch of Yokohama trial, and we were then looking into the POW camps. In sheer numbers, POW camps might not seem like a very big atrocity, but these people were under Japanese capture for like a long time. And so then we were reading about how one of the Japanese officer had then really been keeping like Unit 731, like Shiro Ishii, like an idol. And so he was very interested in human experimentation. In fact, he started experimenting on the POWs that were kept on his camp with like injecting soy milk, which is just cruel. And and then I was also looking, and like a few of those people that he injected soy milk immediately died because that's not how you take in protein. You need to digest it, and it turns into amino acid and whatnot. And but because of this fanaticism of the era, even though that a few of them that he tried on had already passed died from this cruelty, he tried it on another person just to use these humans as like a data point in a very like I would say untested method. I think that itself was it really sent shiver up my spine because I was just like, wow, how cruel. And this like officer was a medical officer as well in these camps. And I was thinking, as a medical officer, as a doctor, they should do no harm. But in these wartime stories, all these doctors then became um, all these evil characters, um, which was very scary.
Mhm. And How do you balance tradition with innovation at PAE? And how do you decide when to stick with classic preservation methods and when to jump in with cutting edge digital solutions?
Actually, we digitize a lot of the archive documents, so it's all digital. So it's not quite innovative in the sense that like you would think, but it is quite cutting edge in terms of history because we use Omega and we make it so then all of these documents are like searchable and whatnot. Um, so yeah.
So we have a lovely question here from Jane. And she says, thank you, Jane, for watching anyway. So, what is the most persistent misconceptions or myth that you constantly find yourself correcting?
Hmm. I think the most persistent misconception, this can be anything, right?
Yes.
Is how people view like wartime Japan because and also in Asia, like people think that nothing happened in Asia during World War II. But in fact, like it was a whole continent that almost it was a continent sized battle, if you think about it, and more than 30 million people died. So I think that's one of the most persistent misconception about the work we do. Or people would think like, oh, it happened so long ago, why does it even matter? But these are like but if you think about it, it's not too long ago. It's like 80 years ago, right? My so I'm pretty sure you've had family that experienced it, right?
Mhm. Okay, I think Jay, that answers your questions, Jane. So, you talk about digitization earlier. So, for a tech audience, what's one surprising piece of technology or digital approach that has been an absolute game changer for PAE's massive digitization and archive management efforts?
I think using Omega, like using this right software, has been a game changer. Before, I think we were just using Dropbox, and we were then not able to really find keywords and tags and have like maps and exhibitions. But now that we've switched to Omega, it's been really easy to the effort is almost seamless. So if Omega is watching, please sponsor us.
Omega's watching, so you know. Yeah. You speak about resilience and consistency fueling impact in a fast moving, often distracting digital landscape. How do you maintain that long term focus and consistency for such a heavy historical mission?
So it's interesting because, as you know, nowadays, people don't have that kind of uh, focus to read a book, right? For example, they probably only would watch a 7 seconds clip or like a 45 seconds clip. And so now instead of just writing blog posts, we started our YouTube channel, which is Pacific Front Untold. And we do shorter videos, but then instead of writing blog posts, and then also with these shorter videos, we started clipping them down to 45 seconds, 30 seconds sometimes, and really try to like get and just have and just be consistent with our upload. And so we actually at least upload like 3 shorts a day onto YouTube just to get people interested in the topics that we're talking about. And yeah, I think that should be it, it, once we figured out like how to find new audience and to keep our audience, I think that became a lot easier.
PAE's internship program is highly renowned. What are the two most important leadership skills you prioritize teaching your interns? Skills that will serve them whether they go into history, tech, or business.
Really listen and also see what the needs are in the world. um and see what other people are talking about, because sometimes you cannot just bring up a topic without listening to what other people are talking about. If you're listening to what other people are talking about, maybe then you can interject with your with the topics or with whatever interest that you have. So that's really the skills that I try to teach.
So, for our audience, if you've enjoyed the conversation so far with Jenny Chan, please take a moment to drop us a lovely rating wherever you listen. A little heart or a like goes a long way. And if you know someone who'd enjoy this, hit that share button. And Jenny, for women in technology looking to step into leadership or start a purpose driven venture, what's one piece of advice you'd give them about translating passion into sustainable organizational impact?
uh I really don't have any advice. Every day I'm trying new things, and I
Mhm.
think one thing is to, keep trying and to keep trying. And if one way is not going to lead you to a way to where you want to go, try a different route, right? But it's like driving a car. You know where you want to go in terms of your destination, but you need to figure out how to get there. So yeah.
That's good. So far, to your previous answer, Jane's comment says it's just that it's hard to imagine what they went through. It makes me feel like being unempathetic. And she says, yes, from my grandfather, lots of traumatic stories. She says, so. Thank you, Jane, for your comment. And if you have more questions, just give us a uh, just drop us in a chat box. And so, Jenny, your work involves confronting and processing deeply challenging historical truths. What is your fundamental strategy for problem solving or moving past institutional friction when the stakes are so high?
The world is so big that if one person does not, or one institution does not want to hear your story or what you have to say or what you have to offer, I think you can move on and go on to tell another audience. So, in terms of institutional friction, I try as hard as I could to really tell our story, and if people don't like to hear it, then I move on and tell it to another audience. So yeah.
What is the most unexpected or touching echo you received, a story or feedback from a visitor or scholar that proved the value of PAE's work?
Yes. So a while ago we had a scholar who did an oral history interview with a lot of the Filipinos who live in the Central Coast, but they were fighting in the Philippines during the war. And so she did that oral history interview with us, and we published a book on it. And at the time, a lot of people were saying that this is not academically rigorous enough. This is not whatever. Um, but she ended up, now she's a professor at a college. And so it's just really about resilience and really not care. It's not about not caring what other people say, but your skin needs to be thick enough to hear the feedback and act on it, but still believe in what you want to do.
Mhm. The live stream's theme is positivity hack delivered. When dealing with such a dark history, how do you reframe positivity?
I exercise a lot. I walk my dog.
That's important.
Yeah, it's important. I watch, and yeah, it's just, there's always hope, right? And it's always about being resilient so you can tell these stories.
So, none of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. Jenny, there any particular person who you are grateful towards to who helped get you to where you are?
Yes, I'm so thankful to a lot of funders who believed in my mission. Because sometimes even I'm like, wow, where am I going tomorrow with this project? But there are funders who who really believe in our project and our digitizing. And yeah, it's just been an incredible journey. And as with many things in life, you can't do it without money. Um, and I'm also very thankful to a lot of mentors of our nonprofit. In fact, a New York Times bestselling author, James Bradley, he's now doing like a series of podcasts with us. So twice a month, we'll have new videos with him on our YouTube channel, Pacific Front Untold, and where we talk about history. And because he's a America's Pacific historian, it's good to hear for our audience to get his perspective and also elevate our channel a little bit.
Uh, You're always pushing forward, Jenny. And what's exciting new projects, archives, or digital initiatives is PE currently focused on that you can share a peek into?
Yeah, so we just released a new book by Quinn Cho, who was a fellow at PAE. And what's interesting about this book is that it's about Quantum Army, which I went after I read so many books on World War II and Asia and whatnot. I couldn't even find one single book on this topic. And so I'm quite thankful that like we were able to go through all of these, not just the National Archive, but also the Library of Congress and whatever, and all of these other archives to get this book done. We're also pushing, like I said, a podcast series on our YouTube channel, Pacific Front Untold, and we have many other topics that I don't think would fit in a blog post very well, or a book very well. And so we're doing it to engage with new audience as well on our YouTube. And this is something that it's really new for us to do. And I'm excited to share our YouTube channel.
A very good luck to your projects and future projects, Jenny. So, let me ask you. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water." In life, how are you in hot water, Jenny? How are you brewing?
I'm brewing every day.
Me
There are new
too.
challenges every day, right? From, harsh online critics to harsh comments to, running out of funding to a very challenging project that, in fact, let me share with you what we were working on last month that really got me thinking, this is really difficult story to tell. We are working on a forced labor project, and in the Yokohama trial that we were looking at, it was very interesting a that a bunch of that we found these Chinese people were in Japan in 1944, and then I was trying to Google what is going on with this at this time period, and when I was Googling forced laborers, Japan, whatnot, it was a lot of the results came from like Japanese internment camp. So like these are like historically removed people, and like this trial was quite historically removed. So we were looking all over the internet to see, what else we can find on these. They say that the best place to hide a dead body is the second page of Google. And after 5 pages of Googling, I finally found this one random guy's college dissertation on the same topic. But he did it 10 years ago. So, but I was able to track him down, and I found his phone number, and I called him, and he gave me the whole rundown of what it was. And if you read our like latest blog post, the 39,000 Chinese kept in Imperial Japan, um, that is the result of some struggles that we have from researching.
Well, that's good. And uh, uh, I'm lost. What is the number one book you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read before I started my career?
Yeah, I wish I read the China Mirage, which is by James Bradley, and now he's doing a show with us, which is great. It is the China Mirage, the hidden history of America disaster in Asia by James Bradley in 2015. If I read it on day one instead of reading it in 2021, then I could have wasted like some years of frustration and being naive about what I was doing. And a lot of wasted energy because as I learned the hard way, which Bradley spelled out in 400 pages. America policy in China from 1930s through the Cold War was built on this romantic myth pushed by the China lobby, which is Henry Lewis's media empire, which is the Times magazine, right? And missionary families, and not on actually the realities of Chiang Kai-shek's regime or Japan's occupation or what had happened, the atrocities that had happened in Asia at all, and why the U.S. public was deliberately kept in the dark about the Japanese atrocities in Asia throughout the 1930s, because acknowledging them would have forced Roosevelt to embargo oil and scrap iron, which is something that the China Mirage crowd was opposed to, until Pearl Harbor made it inevitable, because at the time the U.S. Economy was not doing great. And so if you tell that part of history, and sometimes you get blocked. And also the same propaganda machine erased the rape of Nanking in real time, because of Cold War narratives. And also Unit 731, a lot of the Unit 731 who were doing human experimentations and developing biowarfare, they were later bought by CIA to then work for America. So I wish that, if I had read that earlier, that would have stopped, me from going like, oh, if we just tell the story loudly enough, share enough on social media, people would care. Like there's an indifference that's been manufactured decades even before I was born. And once I understood that, I stopped really doing the old way of what we were trying to do, and really started building more of an archive and documenting what I do, to make sure that if I do get that kind of attack of like, oh, this is not true, whatnot, I have documents and I have documentation. And yeah, so at this point, it's just, yeah, I think that book is really good. And for anyone who wants to know more about Asia Pacific historical justice work, I really recommend that book.
Mhm. And let's imagine that you could meet anyone in the world for a private breakfast. Who would it be and where would you choose to meet?
I would choose to meet with the late Iris Chang. I know, this is fictional because she's already passed. But I think meeting her would be interesting. I would meet her at somewhere in the quiet corner table in a small restaurant or a tea house overlooking the Qinghua River at sunrise, and ask her, like, she took her own life in 2004 after carrying the weight of those stories almost alone. I mean, I'm doing it as an organization, but she did it alone. So I'll thank her for lighting the fuse that eventually led to the work that we're doing at PAE, and hand her the latest testimonies that we've preserved from survivors that she never got to meet, and simply ask, did we do enough? I mean, did you did you do enough with the time that you gave us? And I'll just listen.
Mhm. And last, can you please give us your favorite life lesson quote?
Never again means nothing if the first time is forgotten.
Mhm.
And this is something that when I was interviewing comfort women in China, someone told me that, and which is true. Never again is means nothing if the first time is already forgotten.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Jenny, for sharing that with us. And to wrap up, if there's one single lesson from history that you believe is most critical for today's leaders, especially those navigating the quick pace of the tech industry, what would that lesson be?
I think we're spending so much money on AI, we don't really know what it is and how it's going to affect us. And that kind of is like Unit 731, how Japan was then spending all this money on biological research and whatnot, and they didn't know how that was going to affect them in the world. I think let's step back and see what AI is actually capable of, and then we can go forward.
And that's it from 201 of the PhD live stream. Thanks to our guest, Jenny Chan. And to stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Women on IT and turn on notifications to be alerted once the video has been released. Next week, we will be joined by our research psychologist, a former PhD guest, Rachel Cowart. We will talk about behind the screens, empowering community moderators for safer gaming spaces. And thank you also to our fabulous team, Racy, Janella, and Kim. And as always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes look something positive in each day. Even if some days you have to look a little harder. Today is your day. Hack the future and hack the positivity you want. Thank you.
Thank you so much.